Well, you've seen the totally mentally coherent group Queers for Palestine. Well, get ready for the hard-hitting and powerful impact of street skaters for Palestine. Well, now the pro-Palestine movement is sweeping campuses across the country. We've had Manchester, Newcastle, Sheffield, Leeds, Warwick, Swansea and Bristol, and now Oxford and Cambridge have succumbed. There are camps being set up outside Oxford and Cambridge Universities. Oxford for Palestine published their list of demands. Shall we have a little read through them? So it says, disclose all finances, divest from Israeli genocide, apartheid and occupation, overhaul the university's investment policy, boycott Israeli genocide, apartheid and occupation, stop banking with Barclays and help rebuild Gaza's education system. Well, it's worth noting that the Cambridge pro-Palestine camp spokesman refused to condemn Hamas or describe them as a terror group when questioned by The Telegraph. Shall we have a look at some of Hamas's useful idiots? But over at Oxford, 108 lecturers, faculty members and researchers from multiple colleges have now signed a letter of support. The Dons are at it. How do you think Jewish or conservative students feel there now? Footage has emerged of a Jewish student studying at Cambridge being shoved around and having the Israeli flag ripped away from him.
There you are, sir. Well done.
So that is just totally tolerated on campus now, isn't it? I'm surprised they had time to fit that into their day, though, because there is a busy schedule, which they published. 8 a.m, camp opens, playlist begins. 9 a.m, de-escalation training for all campers. 11 a.m, community guidelines, reading of demands. 1 p.m, lunch, followed by banner making. 3 p.m, rally. 6 p.m, dinner funded by, you guessed it, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Then 7 to 9 p.m, camp community stall. And, oh, yep, the news and reflection, that was at 8 p.m, yeah. Anyway, they're clearly planning on being there for a long time because they've set up an emergency toilet. I mean, I imagine that's absolutely overflowing because most of these students are full of... Anyway, Tory MP Miriam Kate speaks for many when she says the Blairite aspiration to send half of all young people to university has backfired spectacularly. Spending 3 years detached from the real world, spending someone else's money, is not always the best start to adult life. Academic learning and common sense are not the same thing. They've got masks on their faces because they're worried about being identified in case they get arrested or kicked out of university, or it harms their future job prospects. A strong indication that even they realise that they might grow out of this nonsense one day. But listen closely to what some of these people are saying.
The U.S. movement set off a global chain of reaction, and we're so excited to be a part of that and thankful to the U.S. encampments for what they began. Although the U.S. and the U.K. have different contexts, the UK government is similarly complicit in Israeli war crimes, and so too are our institutions of higher education. So we learned a lot from them in terms of our demands, how to engage with our governments, and how to mobilize students.
Interesting accent there. And now this one.
Also know that the University of Oxford, through its investments, through its moral statements, and through its business partnerships and academic partnerships, is directly complicit in the genocide in Gaza and in the Israeli occupation and apartheid.
Another interesting accent. I mean, they think they're in America, don't they? They think they're part of that movement. The only thing more annoying than Americans loudly navigating the London Underground is Americans coming to our universities and kicking off on campus. They've looked at these cretins and taken inspiration.
Ending until our demands are met.
Should we take down the tax?
No!
Our responsibility to figure it out. We, the students, have given you our demands. We have organized here together, and we are not leaving until you figure it out.
One of the earlier clips was put out by the Socialist Workers' Party, and the Palestine Solidarity Campaign is involved. These same people are always involved, whether it's protesting about a migrant bus going to the Bibi Stockholm, whether it's the environment, whether it's outside school gates. It's the same groups of agitators every single time. Now, I've got a solution tell these students that if they take part in pro-Palestine protests, their student loan will be revoked. We'll soon find out how many of them are actually students and how many of them are rent-a-mob jobless activists. But before I get the thoughts of my panel, let me bring in Charlie Woods. So Charlie is a legal student in Oxford, and he was down at the protest today. Look, Charlie, thank you very much. Now, I understand that you're working to try to stop this occupation, aren't you? What's going on?
Well, our primary role is really just to support students and help them understand what their options are. It's actually very difficult for students to be able to use, particularly the legal system, to defend their rights. If they want to issue things like complaints to the university, that can be effective. However, they require a listening ear. And the Vice-Chancellor of Oxford University so far seems to not be doing very, very much.
Okay. What kind of stuff is he hearing, though? What kind of stuff are you hearing, Charlie? What kind of stuff is the university potentially ignoring?
So mainly it's students being isolated, ignored, very, very, dismissive of anything to do with comments about inappropriateness of anti-Semitism and so forth. So it's not easy for students to be able to exercise their rights and defend themselves. What does a student do, for example, if all their classmates ignore them, as has happened, particularly after October 7th? What happens if rhetoric on public forums or at JCRs becomes very intimidatory and very, very nasty and vicious? It's really a major failure of education.
No, it is. And just to clarify, Charlie, without, giving anything away that might identify anyone, you mentioned a couple of examples there. So students at Oxford who presumably are pro-Israel are being given the silent treatments and ignored, are they, by some of their classmates? The general rhetoric behind the scenes is, overwhelmingly pro-Palestine. Are there any, other examples of just what's going on behind the curtain here at these universities, these prestigious universities?
I'll give you one particular example I've heard of. I have heard of a student asking for their professor to remove all Zionists from the classroom, which is something that has been told to me. It is something that I've heard, and students are very, very reluctant to come forward and challenge these kinds of incidents because, first of all, they have to go through their entire degree. And coming forward with a complaint, particularly if it's against a lecturer or an academic, can be extremely risky for them personally. And also, if they want to pursue a career in academia, they will require references. So there is a lot of internal failure to sort of prevent intimidation.
Look, Charlie, thank you very, very much. And we will talk again on this. And good luck with everything that you're doing. Charlie Woods there is working in law in Oxford. Right.